Stop before you do anything else. I need you to think about what you had for breakfast this morning. Whatever it was, eggs, toast, cereal, a protein bar grabbed on the way out the door, you heated it. Or someone heated it, or a machine heated it. You didn't even think about it. Heating food before eating it is so normal, so automatic, so deeply built into daily life that it doesn't register as a choice at all. But it is a choice. A choice your ancestors made roughly 1 million years ago. And before they made it, before any human hand ever deliberately struck a spark, your ancestors were eating something else entirely, something raw, something that would turn your stomach to look at. And the story of what that was and why it matters is going to change the way you understand your own body, your own brain, and your own existence. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Before fire, humans weren't just eating differently. They were different, physically different, biologically different. A different kind of creature entirely. And the gap between that creature and you is not just thousands of years of history. It is the gap between two fundamentally different kinds of animal. One that was barely surviving, and one that eventually built the civilization you are sitting inside right now. That gap was made by fire, by cooking, by heat applied to food. And understanding what existed before that gap is one of the most important things you can know about what you actually are. Let's start with the timeline, because the first thing most people get completely wrong is when fire actually entered the human story. Most people assume fire was discovered relatively early, like it was just sitting there, obvious, waiting to be found. Here is the reality. The oldest confirmed evidence of controlled fire used by human ancestors dates to roughly 1 million years ago. 1 million. And modern Homo sapiens, the species you belong to, only appeared around 300,000 years ago, which means for the first 2 million years of the human story, for the earliest members of our genus stumbling out of African forests onto open savannas, there was no fire, no heat, no cooking, just raw food and the bodies that evolution had given them to process it. 2 million years. Raw, so what were they actually eating? Let's start with the obvious answer: fruit. Enormous quantities of fruit. Our earliest ancestors were overwhelmingly fruit eaters, exactly like our closest living relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, still are today. And ripe fruit is actually a brilliant food source. Calorie-dense, immediately digestible, no preparation required, no tools needed. You find it, you eat it, your body processes it. Simple, effective. For millions of years it worked perfectly, but then something changed. And this is where the story gets complicated. As early human ancestors began moving out of dense forests onto the open African savanna, the fruit supply collapsed. The savanna didn't have the same lush fruit abundance that the forest offered. Seasons were harsher, droughts were longer, and a species that had survived entirely on fruit suddenly found itself in an environment where fruit wasn't reliably available, so they adapted. And what they found next would sustain the human lineage for millions of years: tubers. Underground storage organs, roots, bulbs, rhizomes that plants use to store energy during dry seasons. Tubers are remarkable foods. They are calorie-dense. They are available year-round even in drought conditions because they are underground, protected from the seasonal chaos that wipes out above-ground food sources. And early human ancestors had something no other animal had in quite the same combination: hands capable of digging, and a brain capable of remembering exactly where they had seen tubers before. They could plan, they could return, they could stock up in their memory what the environment wasn't providing consistently on the surface. Here is the part that should stop you cold though. Raw tubers are brutal to eat. A raw potato is tough, starchy, fibrous, and your body extracts a fraction of the calories from it compared to what cooking would eventually unlock. Pre-fire human ancestors were eating the raw version of this food and working enormously hard, spending huge amounts of energy chewing and digesting for a relatively small nutritional return. And yet they survived, because evolution had built them specifically for exactly this challenge. Pre-fire human ancestors had jaws that would look almost alien to modern eyes. Massive, powerful, anchored by enormous cheekbone structures that supported chewing muscles far beyond anything your face contains. If you sat next to an Australopithecus at a dinner table, one of our earliest bipedal ancestors from around 3 to 4 million years ago, the first thing you would notice is not how human they looked. It is how not human their face looked. Built to chew, built to grind. Built to process raw, tough, fibrous food through sheer mechanical force hour after hour after hour. Their jaw was doing work that cooking would eventually make completely unnecessary. And the moment cooking made that work unnecessary, evolution dismantled the jaw. Your jaw is small because your ancestors started cooking. That is not a metaphor, that is biology. Now let's talk about meat, because this is where it gets genuinely controversial and genuinely fascinating. There is solid archaeological evidence that human ancestors were consuming animal products long before fire existed. Stone tools found at sites in Ethiopia dated to 3.4 million years ago. That's 3.4 million show cut marks consistent with butchering animal bones. More than 2 million years before controlled fire. So early human ancestors were accessing animal carcasses, using stone tools to strip meat from bones, and eating that meat raw. Now before you react to that, here's something important. Eating raw meat is not automatically dangerous. That assumption is a modern one, shaped by modern industrial food production where contamination risks are genuinely high and real. In the wild, a fresh animal carcass, an animal that died moments ago in a natural pre-industrial environment, is actually relatively safe to eat immediately. The danger in raw meat comes primarily from bacterial contamination that develops over time. Pre-fire ancestors weren't eating week-old meat from a factory. They were eating fresh kills immediately, and their stomachs with significantly higher acid levels than yours were considerably better equipped to handle it. But here's the part of the raw meat story that almost nobody knows. And it is the part that matters most: bone marrow. Pre-fire human ancestors didn't just eat muscle meat. They broke the bones, deliberately, using stone tools designed specifically for the purpose. And they extracted the dense golden fat packed inside. Bone marrow is one of the most calorie-dense foods that exists in nature. It is essentially pure fat rich in the same oleic acid that makes olive oil famous for being healthy. It requires absolutely no cooking to be digestible. It requires no preparation beyond cracking the bone open. And archaeological evidence of deliberate bone breaking for marrow extraction goes back over 2 million years. These were not accidents. These were not random acts of bone smashing. This was targeted, deliberate, repeated behavior aimed at the most calorie-dense food source available in a pre-fire world. Your ancestors knew exactly what they were doing. They just didn't have a word for it yet. But wait, here's the question you should be asking right now. If the pre-fire diet worked, if fruit and tubers and raw meat and bone marrow sustained the human lineage for millions of years, why did fire matter so much when it arrived? What specifically changed? Why did one technology reshape human evolution so completely that we literally became a different kind of creature? This is where a Harvard primatologist named Richard Wrangham comes in. And this is where the story goes somewhere most people have never been taken. In 2009, Wrangham published a book called Catching Fire. And in it, he proposed something that most of the scientific establishment initially thought was too radical to take seriously. He argued that cooking was not just a cultural development, not just a convenient invention that smarter humans figured out after they were already smart. He argued the opposite. Cooking made us smart. Cooking created the biological conditions that allowed the human brain to expand to its current size. Cooking, in Wrangham's framing, is not something humans invented. It is something that invented us. Let that sit for a second. Here is the argument in plain terms. The human brain is extraordinarily expensive to run. It consumes roughly 20% of your body's total energy budget. That is a massive ongoing cost for an organ that represents only about 2% of your body weight. Maintaining a brain this size requires a massive, reliable, consistent caloric surplus every single day. And raw food, even the most calorie-dense raw food available on the African savanna, cannot reliably provide that surplus. Studies of modern humans who attempt to live on purely raw diets consistently show the same results. They lose significant body weight. They experience reproductive difficulties. Women on raw diets frequently stop menstruating because the body recognizes it does not have enough energy to support reproduction. The raw food diet is not a health movement. It is a return to biological conditions that our pre-fire ancestors could barely sustain. And only because they had bodies specifically evolved for that challenge that we no longer have. Cooking changes everything about caloric extraction. Cooked starch is dramatically more digestible than raw starch. Your body can extract roughly twice the calories from a cooked potato compared to a raw one. Twice. Cooked protein unfolds, heat denatures the molecular structure, making it dramatically easier for your digestive enzymes to access and break it down. Cooked food is softer, requiring less energy to chew. And less chewing means more energy available for everything else your body needs to do. When human ancestors began cooking consistently, they unlocked a caloric surplus that had never existed before in the human story. And evolution, which had always been constrained by that caloric ceiling, suddenly had room. Room to grow a bigger brain. Room to shrink the jaw, now unnecessary in its massive pre-fire form. Room to shorten the gut, which had previously needed to be long and slow to process tough raw plant material, but now no longer did. And all the energy previously spent running an enormous jaw and an enormous gut was suddenly available to be redirected to the brain, generation after generation after generation. This is why Homo erectus, the first human ancestor we have strong evidence of using fire regularly, had a brain significantly larger than the Australopithecines who came before them, not because they randomly got smarter. Because cooking gave their biology permission to get smarter. The caloric math finally worked. Evolution finally had the raw material to build what would eventually become you. And here's the implication of all of this that most people never follow all the way to its conclusion. Your body right now is not a raw food body that has chosen to cook its food. You are a cooked food body. You are biologically dependent on cooking in a way that is not a preference or a habit. It is a physiological fact. Your jaw is too small to process raw, tough food efficiently. Your gut is too short to extract adequate nutrition from uncooked plant material. Your stomach acid is too weak compared to your pre-fire ancestors. Your entire digestive system is calibrated, by hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, around the assumption that food will be heated before consumption. You are, in the most literal biological sense possible, a creature of fire. Take away cooking and you do not get a less comfortable human being. You get a human being who slowly starves, loses reproductive capacity, loses cognitive function, and becomes something smaller and less capable than what you are right now. Your brain exists because your ancestors cooked. Your jaw is small because your ancestors cooked. Your gut is short because your ancestors cooked. Your intelligence, your language, your capacity for abstract thought, your ability to read these words and understand them and think about what they mean, all of it traces back to a moment somewhere on the African savanna, roughly 1 million years ago, when a human ancestor put food near a fire and noticed that what came out was better than what went in. So what did humans eat before fire? They ate fruit stripped from branches by hands that looked almost like yours. They ate raw tubers dug from dry earth with fingers built for exactly that purpose. They ate fresh meat stripped from bones with stone tools on ancient riverbeds. They cracked femurs on rocks and sucked the marrow out with a satisfaction that you would recognize if you tried it. They ate insects calorie-dense available year-round requiring no tools to catch. They ate honey raided from wild hives at enormous personal risk. They ate eggs stolen from unguarded nests. They ate leaves and shoots when nothing better was available. It was a diet built entirely on availability, on seasonal rhythms, on the luck of the landscape, and on bodies specifically engineered to handle food in its rawest, most unforgiving form. It worked. It sustained the human lineage for millions of years. But it had a ceiling, a hard biological limit on how much energy it could deliver, and that ceiling held human potential in check for longer than the mind can comfortably process. Fire broke that ceiling, cooking broke that ceiling. And the moment it broke, the trajectory of life on Earth changed forever. Your brain grew, your jaw shrank, your gut shortened. Your ancestors slowly stopped being one kind of creature and started becoming another. And that new creature, smarter, more flexible, more capable than anything the raw food world had ever produced, eventually learned to plant crops, build cities, write laws, compose music, tell stories, and wonder, sitting in the warm light of a kitchen in the modern world, what the people who came before them actually ate for dinner. Now you know. They ate everything they could find, raw, tough, and hard won, every single day. And you, warm, well-fed brain running at full capacity on a cooked breakfast, are the result.